What's up, YouTube? How's it going? So if you are interested in your habits, if you are interested in the psychology behind habit formation and how you can improve your habits to improve your life, by the end of this video, you will have a much better idea of how habits work and how you can utilize habit formation to improve your life. As you just saw, Atomic Habits. So this book is written by an entrepreneur named James Clear, and he is very interested in habits because if you know anything about like entrepreneurs, they seem to be the kinds of people who place a lot of emphasis on their time and making sure that they manage their time well and efficiently. So as he describes in this book, he was very much interested from a very young age, or at least from a certain age, of how to like make the most out of his habits, how to make sure that he formed good habits, and how he got rid of bad habits. I actually saw this book like a long time ago, and it's been on my TBR for a long time, and I finally got around to reading it. I'm gonna make some videos kind of breaking down the different parts of the book in terms of what he has to say about making good habits, getting rid of bad habits. So this book is very useful in terms of, you know, changing your habits, making sure that your habits are more conducive to accomplishing your goals rather than being a detriment to, you know, accomplishing your goals on a day in, day out basis. So as the book cover mentions, it says, tiny changes, remarkable results. So when you think about atomic, you think about something that's small. It's very tiny. It's atoms are obviously like one of the smallest things in the universe. So the idea that he talks about in this book is that, you know, when it comes to changing your habits, trying to make these big changes can be too demanding initially. You know, instead of saying, I'm going to go do 100 push-ups a day, and that's how you're going to get in shape. James Clear talks about how you want to make tiny changes because tiny changes are easier to stick with, and they're more effective in creating long-term habits. The idea here is of compounding your habits. The idea here is that if you improve by just 1% every day, you're eventually going to improve little by little by little by little. And over time, those little 1% changes will compound into a big change. You know, the same way that a lot of people think about compound interest, you know, when you invest your money somewhere and it grows with time, like it doesn't grow a lot very quickly, but you know, like usually with like a little bit of time, there's like a small improvement and a small improvement and small growth and small growth and small growth. And then over time, that small growth takes off and it becomes big. The idea behind this book is tiny changes, big results over time that you can see in your life. And it's difficult because when we think about tiny changes and long-term results, it's always very difficult to do that because when we don't see the effects of our work, when we don't see the fruits of our labor, then we tend to get kind of like unmotivated, disinterested in continuing. It's kind of like when you start going to the gym, you know, when you go to the gym for a few weeks, you're not really going to see results. So you're like, man, I'm going to the gym, I'm eating healthy, I'm lifting weights when I don't want to, I'm doing sit-ups when I don't want to, I'm doing all these things, but I look the same, you know? And then because you don't see those changes until like a longer amount of time in the future, you tend to get kind of, you know, unmotivated, and you're like, well, I'm not seeing any results, so this isn't motivating me. But obviously working out doesn't work that way. Like, you have to put in the work slowly but surely, and eventually you're going to start to see that your muscles are getting more toned, your belly is shrinking, you're starting to get in better shape over time. And regarding this, he talks about what he calls the plateau of latent potential, and that basically just describes how, you know, the point at which you eventually see all of your hard work pay off. The plateau of latent potential is like when you go to the gym over and over and over again and you don't see a result, but one day you look in the mirror and you're like, oh, you know, my shoulders look bigger, my arms look bigger, my waist seems smaller, whatever it might be. And it can be other things. Maybe you're writing a book and, you know, you're writing and you're like, man, I only got 5 pages. But after more and more time goes on, if you're writing a page a day, or even just like a paragraph a day, eventually you're going to see that you're starting to make way, and you're like, oh man, I'm already at 40 pages, or I'm at 50 pages, you know. So it eventually pays off, but you just have to have the patience, and you have to wait for the uh, plateau of latent potential, as he refers to it. You have to wait to see when the results will actually come and start paying off. So a lot of us, myself included, sometimes we can have a hard time controlling our habits. Maybe we behave in a way that we know is probably not in our best interest. We could probably spend our time more efficiently doing something else, but sometimes we lack the discipline to spend our time doing what we should be doing. And, you know, that's where this book comes in and tries to help every single person learn how they can slowly but surely regulate their behavior in a way that's going to end up producing effective and productive habits that help you achieve your goals in the long run. So the basis of this book is a 4-step model that helps you understand how habits work and how you can create good habits for yourself and how you can break bad habits for yourself. So when it comes to any kind of habit, we usually want to improve our habits because we have some kind of goal that we want to accomplish. And we tend to think of this goal like, okay, one day um, I'm going to accomplish this. You know, one day I'm going to lose this weight. One day I'm going to start this business. One day I'm going to do whatever. One day I'm going to get my finances in order. So we tend to think in terms of the goal or the outcome that we want, right? So it's like, I need to start making budgeting a part of my habit so I can get my finances in order. I need to start making eating healthy and working out a part of my habits so that I can have a fit figure and be healthy. I need to start being productive with my time so I can run this business successfully. So we have this idea of we have these goals and we have to make sure that our habits match what our goals are. That's usually how we tend to think about it. But in this book, James Clear talks about how you can't have a goals-centered mindset. You know what I mean? I tend to have that mindset. I tend to think about what are my goals and what do I want to accomplish. And the author argues that that's fine, right? You should have goals because goals allow you to understand where you're going. But a lot of times, a lot of us, myself included, tend to place too much importance on the goal. We tend to place too much importance on the outcome. And James Clear, the author, he argues that what's more important than a goal is a system. Because you can have a goal, but the system is the means by how you reach that goal. So if the goal is to be fit, the system is your workout routine and your eating routine and your eating habits. One of the reasons why systems are more important than goals is when you really think about it, people who are successful in accomplishing a goal versus people who are unsuccessful at accomplishing a goal both have the same goals, right? People who say, I want to lose weight. Let's say you have two people. It's New Year's Eve. Their New Year's resolution is, I want to lose weight, right? Those are two people with the same goal, but let's say one person has a system where they track what they eat. They work out every day. They exercise. Blah, 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 right? The other person thinks about how they might eat right. They think about what their gym routine would be, but then they kind of just get lazy and don't go. And they don't really work out. Maybe they go to the gym, but then they kind of fall off of it. Maybe they start to eat right, but then they fall off of it. At the end of the year, the person who has the effective system, the person who tracks what they eat, the person who works out every day and has the habits in their system of healthy habits, that's the person who at the end of the year is going to be able to say, I lost X amount of pounds. Whereas the person who didn't really place so much importance on the system, they're going to be like, I didn't lose any weight. Maybe I gained weight, you know? Maybe they lost a little bit, but not as much as the person with the firm system in hand. And so that is a reason why a system, or at least one of the reasons why a system is superior to a goal. In the book, it says winners and losers start with the same goals. The thing that matters is the system. Another reason why being goal focused is not the best is because when you think about goals as being the thing that you're trying to reach for, it restricts your happiness. Many times in life, we think to ourselves, well, when I accomplish this goal, then I'm going to be a much happier person. When I lose this weight, when I get this raise, when I accomplish this task, when I get married, when, blah, 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 whatever it is. When this happens, when this outcome happens, then I'm going to be happy. But the problem with that is that all we really have in this life is the present. And because you're looking towards a future state to be the thing that makes you happy, you're not going to be as happy as you potentially could be in the present. You're restricting or you're preserving that for a future time frame. And by preserving that for a future time frame, you're putting your happiness as something that's going to happen in the future rather than something that's going to happen right here, right now. And that's why focusing on the system, focusing on the process, and being able to be happy with the process is more important than focusing on the outcome. These ideas are important because they're related to the 3 layers of habit formation.
So in this book, they have the 3 layers of behavior change. So on the outside, it starts with the outcome, and then the process and identity is the one in the center because it's the one you have to start with. It's the most important one. And then these other layers of processes, which would be your systems and outcomes, come as a result of identity. So when we have an outcome-based habit and we're starting from the outside and then trying to work our way inward, that's an outcome-based habit. Whereas when we first start with identity as the first part, and then we prioritize who we are and where we want to go, that is more efficient than trying to say, I'm going to focus on the outcome, and then through the outcome, I'll become the person I want to be. The author argues you need to start with who you want to be in terms of your identity and work your way to an outcome.
So the outcomes is what we talked about. It's the results, it's the goals. The process is the systems. It's the means by which you achieve your goal, the habits and the tactics you use. And then the first is identity change. Okay, and this is the one that the author claims is actually the most important. So why is identity change the most important change according to the author? Well, it's because ultimately your identity is what shapes your actions. Humans don't like to have an inconsistency behind what we are doing and how we see ourselves. If you see yourself as a kind person, you're not going to want to do what you consider to be terrible things. If you view yourself as a kind person, it seems out of sync with your own identity for you to go and treat somebody terribly, you know? If you see yourself as a physically fit person, not going to the gym at all and just eating a whole bunch of junk food is not in sync with how you see yourself. If you are a musician and you don't listen to any music at all and you don't practice your musical instrument, that doesn't feel right to you because you identify as a music lover. You identify as a musician. It's part of your identity and how you perceive yourself. So the importance of identity change in terms of changing our habits is being able to make sure that we have an identity that is consistent with the habits that we want to achieve. If someone is trying to stop smoking cigarettes, it's important for them to not see themselves as somebody who is trying to quit smoking. They have to perceive themselves as someone who does not smoke. Because when they perceive themselves as someone who is trying to not smoke or someone who's trying to quit, it can, according to the author, it can be easier for this person to start smoking again or maybe give into the temptation of smoking because their identity is, well, I'm someone who's trying to stop smoking. Instead, if you identify as someone who does not smoke, then it's going to be easier for you to reject that cigarette or to reject that smoke because it's not in sync with your identity. You know, if you take pride in being someone who does not smoke, when there's the temptation to smoke, you're going to be like, no, because that collides with my identity. If being an athlete is something that you enjoy and it's something that you take pride in, you're going to want to engage in all the activities like practice, like, working out and staying in shape, because it's part of your identity and you're proud to be who you are. Whereas if you just sit on the sofa and you eat a lot of junk food and you don't practice at all, it's going to feel like it's inconsistent with who you are. And you're proud to be who you are. So you don't want to do anything that's going to disrupt the identity that you are proud of. And that's why the author claims that more important than being outcomes focused, more important than even the process, the first thing that you have to start with is you have to start with an identity change. Because if you don't start with an identity change, it's not going to work. Your processes, right? The systems that you incorporate into your habit formation, they have to be consistent with an identity in order for them to stick. And then once you have your identity in place, the systems you form around your identity will fall into place, and then obviously your outcomes will happen as a result of those things being taken care of. And that's why, according to this book, why so many people who have like a New Year's resolution or a plan to change their habits, that's why so many people will fail, because they're automatically trying to tackle habit formation and the change of negative habits from a position of outcome. They're saying, I want this outcome, but they're not digging deeper into how their identity affects their outcome and how their processes and how their systems affect their outcome. So it's all about just understanding how you need to approach and tackle the task of better habits and less bad habits. So this author provides a 4-step model for habit formation. The 4-step model consists of a cue, a craving, a response, and a reward. A cue is anything in the environment that might lead you to engage in a habit. So an example of this is, let's say that you smoke cigarettes and you're trying to stop. And let's say that you tend to smoke cigarettes in your backyard. Let's say you go to take your trash out and the trash is in the backyard. So you go to take your trash out and you see the spot that you sit in when you smoke your cigarettes. That environment, your backyard, is going to work as a cue. When you see your backyard, it works as a cue and it makes the habit come to your mind. What follows the cue is the craving. So you have a craving that's like, ooh, I would like to have a cigarette right now. I would like to smoke right now. And that craving obviously is going to affect your behavior. And then that leads to the third part of the model, which is the response. So then you have this, you see your backyard, this leads you to think about a cigarette and how good a cigarette might be, and that's the craving. So now it's time for response. So are you going to smoke the cigarette or are you not going to smoke the cigarette? Let's say you cave in and you're like, yeah, I'm going to smoke a cigarette. You smoke the cigarette, and then obviously a cigarette can be very relaxing. It can help you deal with anxiety and get less like fidgety. So you have your cigarette and you start to feel really good from having that cigarette. And that is the 4th step of the model, which is the reward. Like when you smoke the cigarette, it feels good, it calms your nerves, and that acts as a reinforcement to the habit. So once again, you go outside, you see your backyard, that's the cue. You get the craving, you're like, man, I want a cigarette. You say, screw it, I'm going to have a cigarette. That's the response. You smoke the cigarette. And then the feeling, the good feeling that you get from the cigarette is the reward.
So here you have the habit loop. It starts off with a cue in your environment. That cue sets off a craving. And then once you have the craving, you have a response that you do. And then that response results in a reward. And that reward is what establishes the habit. And that is the habit loop.
Anyway, that's all the time I have for this video, but in the next videos, I will show you more of the details about how to implement those steps into habit formation and into improving your life in the process. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up, subscribe to this channel if you haven't, and I will see you guys next time. Bye.